Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Vishapad Paramahamsa Parivrajakatarya Astatara Sata Hisavanga Shila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Hisavanga Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Gauri Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Lagiraj Lona Shingadev Ki Jai. Shri Shri Konitai Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Hare Krishna everyone, good morning and welcome to this day's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are reading from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 20, text 3. You can all see that? Okay, please repeat. Dvaipayana nanavaro mahitvetasya dehajaha sarvatmana shita krishnam tatparam schapyanuvrataha. Okay, once more. Dvaipayana nanavaro mahitvetasya dehajaha sarvatmana shrita krishnam tatparam schapyanuvrataha. Okay, would anyone like to lead the chanting? Dvaipanayana navaro mahitvetasya dehajaha sarvatmana shita krishnam tatparam schapyanuvrataha. Dvaipanayana navaro mahitvetasya dehajaha sarvatmana shita krishnam tatparam schapyanuvrataha. Dvaipanayana navaro mahitvetasya dehajaha sarvatmana shita krishnam tatparam schapyanuvrataha. Dvaipanayana navaro mahitvetasya dehajaha sarvatmana shita krishnam tatparam schapyanuvrataha. Dvaipanayana navaro mahitvetasya dehajaha sarvatmana shita krishnam tatparam schapyanuvrataha. Anyone else? Okay, here we go, synonyms. All right, please repeat. Dvaipayanat, from Vyasadeva. Anavara, in no way inferior. Mahitve, in greatness. Tasya, his, Vyasas. Dehaja, born of his body. Sarva Atmana, with all his heart. Shrita, took shelter. Krishnam, Lord Krishna. Tatparal, those devoted to him. Cha, and. Api, also. Anuvrata, followed. Okay, and here we have the translation. Vidura was born from the body of Vedavyas and was not less than he. Thus he accepted the lotus feet of Krishna wholeheartedly and was attached to his devotees. Translation, please repeat. Vidura was born from the body of Vedavyas and was not less than he. Thus he accepted the lotus feet of Krishna wholeheartedly and was attached to his devotees. Right, and now we get to the purport. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The history of Vidura is that he was born of a Sudra mother, but his seminal father was Vyasadeva. Thus he was not less than Vyasadeva in any respect. Since he was born of a great father, who was supposed to be an incarnation of Narayan and who composed all the Vedic literatures, Vidura was also a great personality. He accepted Krishna as his worshipable Lord and followed his instructions wholeheartedly. Very nice verse. So read this here. Some invocation prayers. Naranayam namaskritya naram chaiva nuratamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavat uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Om Gyati Mirandasya Ganandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Hare Krishna. So today's shloka focuses specifically on one of Krishna's very dear devotees, Mahatma Vidura. And this is actually our good fortune, right? It is a very good opportunity to look more closely at some of the characteristics and the virtues of one of Krishna's dear devotees. So first of all, let's just have a look at this chapter. All right, so we're in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Approximately 5,000 years ago, we have Shonaka Rishi heading up all the other rishis at Naimisharanya forests, and he is inquiring from Sutta Goswami about Vidura, right, and about Vidura's conversations with Maitreya Muni, who was a great philosopher and great sage. And we are going to be hearing more of these conversations throughout this chapter, but this particular verse today focuses specifically on Vidura. So, after all the machinations that went on within the palace of Hastinapur, right, 5,000 years ago, Vidura set out on pilgrimage to the Himalayas, and it was there that he met Maitreya Muni, and Maitreya Muni then gave him transcendental knowledge. And one of the reasons why Vidura left the palace at Hastinapur was because the crown prince at that time, so this was Duryodhana, who was described as the foremost evil and sinful of personalities, he was repeatedly, he would insult and offend his uncle Vidura, right, to the point where Vidura just didn't want to be in the palace anymore. And the reason why Duryodhana was so insulting to Vidura was that Vidura was, of course, protecting the Pandavas, who are the rightful heirs to the throne of Hastinapur, and Duryodhana wanted that throne for himself. So Vidura was also a close friend of Krishna. Right? Srila Prabhupada says that Vidura is actually a pure devotee of Krishna. And Krishna, of course, he was a cousin to the Pandavas, and the Pandavas are great devotees of Krishna. So consequently, Duryodhana saw all of them as his enemies. This is what was going on within the palace of Hastinapur. So all these complex relationships within Hastinapur, that is what actually sets the stage for the Mahabharata And as we know, there are so many valuable lessons coming out of the Mahabharata, so many valuable teachings, and that of course includes our Bhagavad Gita. So, looks a little bit like a photograph of my Trimurti there. Okay, so in order to properly appreciate the personality of Vidura, it actually helps us to understand who he is in truth. So Vidura appeared in the Kuru dynasty, right? So he was the younger brother of Dhritarashtra Maharaj and Pandu Maharaj. It was 3 brothers, which makes him the Pandavas' uncle. Right? So Vidura is actually an incarnation of Lord Yamaraj, right? Who in previous times had been cursed by a sage. Right? This sage, the name of this sage, there's actually 2 names given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, if anyone can shed any light of this, but on this I've actually read 2 names. One of them is Manduka, sage Manduka, and the other name given is Mandavya. In any case, so the reason why Manduka cursed Lord Yamaraj was because Lord Yamaraj did something that that Manduka considered abominable. Right? So Lord Yamaraj, as we know, he is a demigod who determines the punishment for all the materially entangled souls, all the irreligious souls. And in the case of Manduka, Yamaraj had determined that Manduka should die from being pierced with a sharp lance. Right? A lance is like some sort of sharp object, like a sword, until he died. Right, but when the time came for Manduka to receive this punishment, right, he had been arrested by the police because of some sort of kerfuddle. He happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time or whatever. So he was arrested by the police, but just before he was going to be pierced with a sword, the king of the land at that time intervened and stopped them and said, no, you can't do this because this punishment is too harsh for a saintly person. So then the police released Manduka, and Manduka decided to go straight down to Pitriloka to confront Lord Yamaraj to ask him why had this very severe death been determined for him. Right? And it was at that time that Lord Yamaraj told him that when he was a boy, when Manduka was just a young boy, he had pierced an ant with a sharp straw. Right. So therefore, Lord Yamaraj had decreed that, okay, well, you're going to die in the same way. So hearing this, Manduka Muni got furious, and he said to Lord Yamaraj that this harsh punishment was totally unfair because he had just been a little boy when he did this. And he said to Lord Yamaraj that this judgment on his behalf had been based on ignorance rather than wisdom. So therefore, Manduka cursed him. Right? In his anger, he cursed Yamaraj that he should take birth as a Sudra because Sudras are afflicted with ignorance. So that's how come Lord Yamaraj had to take birth as Vidura. So, yes, as Srila Prabhupada was commenting, I think, in the purport, Vidura's mother was a maidservant. So the 3 brothers, right, we have Dhritarashtra, Pandu and Vidura. They all had the same seminal or biological father, that is Sage Vyasadeva, but they all had different mothers. So the mother of Dhritarashtra and Pandu are proper, like in the Kshatriya families, they're royal, what is considered royal blood. But Vidura, his mother, was the maidservant of the other 2. So, in that time in India, and I would say, also today, I don't really know what's going on today in the, with all the social structures in India, but at least in that time, if a person ended up in that situation where they had 2 different people of different varnas, the lower varna would be taken into consideration, and therefore Vidura was considered a Sudra, and he ended up marrying a woman who was also in the same situation where she had one parent of high birth and another parent of what they considered to be a low birth. But even though Vidura was not considered on the same social platform as his brothers Pandu and Dhritarashtra, he nevertheless retained all his wisdom and knowledge and intelligence that he naturally has as Lord Yamaraj. Plus, he had also inherited, the wisdom of sage Vyasadeva, his biological father. So we can imagine that now we have in this one personality a very, very intelligent and insightful and wise person. And of course we know that Vidura ended up taking the role of Prime Minister for his elder brother Dhritarashtra when he ascended to the throne. And as Dhritarashtra's Prime Minister, Vidura was constantly trying to warn Dhritarashtra that his selfish policies, which were designed to push away the Pandavas, which were the rightful heirs to the throne, because Dhritarashtra wanted to put his own son Duryodhana on the throne. Pandu, the father of the Pandavas, he had of course passed away in the forests, and after that Dhritarashtra was supposed to protect the Pandavas, and make sure that they received their rightful inheritance, but this didn't happen. And Dhritarashtra just wasn't interested in listening to Vidura, which of course ended up exactly as Vidura said, that Dhritarashtra's selfishness was going to sink not only Hastinapur into darkness, it was actually going to take the whole Bharat Varsh, plunge them into darkness. And this is actually what happened, right? So Srila Prabhupada writes that in the Adiparva of the Mahabharata, it is said that as many as 640 million soldiers were killed just in the 18 days of the Battle of Kurukshetra. 640 million. In addition to that, you would have had hundreds and thousands of horses and elephants who had also been deployed to participate in the battle. In addition to that, you would now all of a sudden you have millions of women who became widows because their husbands who were fighting as soldiers in the war, they had all perished. So that's why it is said that even to this day, there is no other war that has equaled the Battle of Kurukshetra in terms of the impact on the earth and the impact on different populations. Now, whilst Lord Yamaraj was busy playing the role of Vidura in the palaces of Hastinapur, who was doing his job in Pitriloka, right? So the answer to that is that there was an Aditya, right? An Aditya, that means he is the son of Aditi and Kashyapa Muni. So one of the Adityas, his name was Aryama. So he temporarily took Lord Yamaraj's position, and did his job while Lord Yamaraj was busy as Vidura in Hastinapur. And in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, right, Srila Prabhupada comments that, in truth, Lord Yamaraj, incarnating as Vidura, he was never a real Sudra, right? He was never a real Sudra. In fact, he was, right, quoting Srila Prabhupada's words exactly, he was greater than the purest type of Brahmana. Right? And he just had to take that role of Vidura because of Manduka's curse. But if we go back even further, right, let's go back before 5,000 years ago when the Mahabharata took place, we learned that it had actually been the desire of Lord Yamaraj to preach the glories of the Lord, right? And to fulfill his desire, right, Krishna had sort of organized the whole thing. He had organized for Manduka to curse him, and he had organized for him then to take birth as Vidura so that he could glorify Krishna and his devotees. Right? So Lord Yamaraj is a very dedicated servant of Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, among dispensers of law, I am Yama, or Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. And in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada discusses how amongst the demigods, Lord Yamaraj actually has one of the busiest jobs, right? He's one of the busiest because his service is, shall we say, very, very demanding. right? Namely, like he's determining the punishments of all of these materially embodied souls. And also we know that Lord Yamaraj is one of the 12 Mahajans, right? That means he's one of the 12 personalities who have been especially deputed to teach Vedic principles to humankind. So we can understand that perhaps Lord Yamaraj doesn't get so much opportunity to preach, just to simply speak about Krishna and his glories. So therefore Krishna decided to fulfill his desire, and we can understand this is Krishna's mercy and kindness upon Lord Yamaraj. Even though there was that curse, still there was Krishna's compassion on Lord Yamaraj. So when we are studying these personalities, these special devotees within the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, it really helps us to understand them if we can look at the whole picture, so to speak, to understand who they truly are, why they have come at the time when they came, and if we do happen to have access to information about them before they came here, then we can get a really, really good picture of them. So, now in the English language, there is a term that goes palace intrigues. Have any of you heard that? Palace intrigues. So that term refers to a situation in which there are secret plots and schemes and strategies that are being planned within the governing body of a monarchy. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that term didn't eventuate from what was going on in Hastinapur at that time. Right? There were many, many conspiracies against the Pandavas at that time. So the Pandavas, from when they returned from the forest, right? So they came back when their father Pandu perished in the forest. They came back with their mother Kunti to the palace of Hastinapur, and they were still quite young boys, or they were youths, right? And from that time, their evil cousin Duryodhana was trying to get rid of them again, because Duryodhana saw the Pandavas as a threat. And Duryodhana, he had the support of his evil and cunning uncle called Shakuni. So Shakuni was the brother of Gandhari. Gandhari was the wife of Dhritarashtra. So Shakuni was a very lowly personality. Right? He was like a very sinister politician, and he was also he was always scheming how to finish off the Pandavas, because he also desired Duryodhana to inherit the throne. Excuse me 1 second. So we need to understand that at this time, right, at this time of the Mahabharata, Hastinapur ruled over a lot of land. So whoever was going to inherit the throne was going to become very powerful, very famous, very influential. So if we just have a quick look at this. Excuse me, can you grab my brown bag? I just need to get a little cough lolly because my throat's... So Hastinapur is situated near the Ganges River. It is approximately 145 kilometers in a northeast direction, thank you, from where today's capital, Delhi, is situated. And as we can see on the map, right, on the map on the right, the green territory, oh yeah, you can see that. This is how far the Kuru Empire had spread around the time when the Kuru dynasty was at its peak in terms of rulership and influence, and it is said that this expansion of land happened under the rule of Pandu Maharaj, right, before he perished in the forests. And if we go back even further in time, right, to the time of Bharat Maharaj, right, it is said that Bharat Maharaj, very famous ruler, he not only ruled over Hastinapur or India, but he actually ruled over the entire planet. So this is where we get the word Bharat Varsh, Right? And as you may know, there is discussion in India whether the name India should in fact be changed to Bharat. A lot of people are wanting that in India. Excuse me. So, topographically, we also find that India, especially this region in the north of India, is at the center of all geographical regions, not only in this continent, but actually on the whole planet. This is quite remarkable. If there are devotees like Sadaputa who has done studies into this, and if you look at all the mountain chains and all the different geographical features of all the continents, they all have a connection to this part in northern India. We also know from linguists, right? A linguist, that is a scholar who studies languages. Linguists today, they will study the spread and the origins of language and culture, right? And then they draw up maps about how languages and culture have spread going way back over the millennia. And again, India comes up at the center of all of those sorts of studies. Right? So Hastinapur and its regions represent a lot more than just an ancient capital of India. And as we know, it is also the earthly location where Krishna himself descends and performs his many pastimes. So when Vidura had accepted the position of Prime Minister for his elder brother Dhritarashtra, Vidura more or less ended up in the middle of this entire family feud that was going on between the Pandavas and the godly Pandavas, and that's Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula and Sahadev, and Duryodhana and his 100 brothers. Right? So terribly sorry. Vidura, as a devotee of Krishna, was naturally drawn to take the side of godly-minded souls, such as the Pandavas, but actually we could say that Vidura was simply siding with the truth, because the truth was that Yudhishthira was the qualified prince out of all the princes. He was the qualified one to really inherit the throne. Not only was he older in age than his cousin Duryodhana, but he actually had the right personal qualities to be a king, to be an emperor. And at the time in Hastinapur, everybody knew this, right? Everybody knew about the virtues of Yudhishthira and about the treachery of Duryodhana. This was not something that wasn't known. Right, but Duryodhana was so intent on getting the throne, and his blind father Dhritarashtra also was trying to organize for him to get the throne. So consequently, there were actually many attempts made by Duryodhana to dishonor the Pandavas and their wife Draupadi, and as we know, there were also attempts to kill the Pandavas and their mother Kunti Devi. But every time such attempts were made, who should come to their rescue but Krishna? And also Vidura played an important role in intervening in these evil schemes. So Krishna was a first cousin to the Pandavas, right? Because his father Vasudeva was the natural sister to Kunti Devi, the mother of the Pandavas. But more to the point, the Pandavas are all great devotees of Krishna, right? They're very pious. So naturally, regardless of how hard Duryodhana tried to finish off the Pandavas, Krishna always protected them. And because Vidura was able to see through Duryodhana's and Shakuni's wicked schemes, Duryodhana developed an absolute hatred for Vidura, right? And so he kept insulting him to the point where he left the palace. So let's have a look at some of the specific qualities of Vidura, right? So we know Vidura is referred to as Mahatma. Mahatma means Great soul, thank you. Yes, someone who is a Mahatma, has a elevated consciousness. They're advanced in their spiritual realization. But I went through Srila Prabhupada's purports and actually found that Prabhupada is giving some additional meanings to the word Mahatma. So I thought we'd have a look at some of those. They're quite interesting. Right, the first one who is steady in his heart. Right, this means that an individual has conquered the demands of the material senses, and they're fixed in their determination to focus on higher spiritual and devotional goals. Right, next one. One who is broad-minded. So this refers to being free from being stuck with a very narrow view of life and being stuck with a very narrow view of other people. Those who are broad-minded are generally able to better understand higher subject matters, and they are able to discern between what should be done and what should not be done. And it is said that Vidura was so broad-minded and so insightful that almost everyone in Hastinapur was in awe of him, because they knew that whatever was going to come from Vidura's lips, whatever he was going to speak, it was going to be the exact truth. And as we know, quite often people will find it difficult to hear the exact truth about themselves or about something that they hold very dear. Right? So, and it is also said that Vidura never used words that had no meaning or that didn't have a purpose, and that his statements were even able to reveal people's hidden thoughts and agendas. Right? I'll just divert here. So this is a nice shloka I found in the third canto. Right? It says, Vidura's instructions, which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and his instructions by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state. All right, so now let's have a look at the next one. Right, first-class Krishna-conscious man who is eligible to enter into the abode of Krishna. So a first-class man, according to Srila Prabhupada, is the Brahmana who is situated in the mode of goodness and who is dedicated to Vaishnava principles and who lives by those principles. It is also he who understands what needs to be done without necessarily needing to be told or asked by a superior person. Right, so the Mahatma understands the importance of spiritual precepts and lives accordingly, and thereby he qualifies himself to enter into the spiritual abode. One whose heart is expanded. So if one's heart is expanded, it means that one has superseded this sort of petty selfishness that comes from mundane desires. Right? So those whose hearts are expanded, they would generally have the welfare of other living beings in their minds, and they will generally act for the welfare of others, not so much for themselves. And this was Vidura's behavior. One who is directly in touch with the Supreme Lord in devotional service. So, only a pure devotee of Krishna can always remain directly in touch with Krishna. Right? And we do hear about a number of such devotees through Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Devotees such as Sudama and Uddhava, who could not bear the thought of even being away from Krishna. There are others also, such as the cowherd boys and the Pandavas. Right? So all these devotees, they're very, very dear to Krishna because Krishna is very, very dear to them. Right? And Vidura was certainly amongst the most sincere of devotees. So these devotees are always directly in touch with Krishna through their devotional service to him. Okay, the last one here. One who is thinking about how to attain spiritual perfection. So although Vidura was acting in the role of Hastinapur's prime minister, inwardly he was a sadhu, he was a saintly person, right? He was very renounced and spiritually elevated, and he actually was not attached to the politics that were constantly going on around him. So this is the true Mahatma, right? It is one who is above mundane concerns because they understand the fleetingness and the triviality of worldly life. So instead of becoming intrigued by worldly life or even disturbed by it, the Mahatma remains above these worldly entanglements, and they're absorbed in focusing on spiritual subject matters instead. So as Vidura, Lord Yamaraj became one of the most prominent personalities in the saga of the Mahabharata. Right? Not only did he excel others around him with his sharp intellect and his clear insight into matters, but also he was renowned for understanding what constitutes true morality and what deviates from true morality. Right? And in the ongoing struggle between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, Vidura actually became like a beacon of light, like a beacon of hope for those who could actually see and understand the destructive intentions of Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra and Shakuni. Excuse me. And Vidura, right, along with other devotees like Bhishma Deva and Dronacharya, they were making every effort to prevent Duryodhana from destroying not only Hastinapur but also destroying the Pandavas. And there is one famous pastime in which Vidura protected the Pandavas. I'm sure some of you have heard of this. It is the pastime of, this is before the Battle of Kurukshetra. And in the palace of Hastinapur, Dhritarashtra requests the Pandavas, he requested Yudhisthira Maharaj and the others came along, to go to Varanavata, to represent the royal family, because there was a big festival held in Lord Shiva's honor there. And leading up to that venture, Duryodhana had built a house, a very grand house at Varanavata, so that the Pandavas had somewhere to stay whilst they were there. Which all sounds very nice, but we know the story. Duryodhana's actual intent was to burn the Pandavas alive with their mother, and so when he built his house, he used inflammable materials, right? But Vidura, because of his intelligence, he detected the plot of Duryodhana, and he was able to intervene in time. He sent a miner to dig a tunnel under that house so that the Pandavas could escape, and then they didn't get burnt. And there is also another famous pastime. Right, so this time, this is immediately before the battle of Kurukshetra. We have, so the Pandavas have come back from their 13-year exile. They have finished their 13-year exile in the forest, which we know eventuated from Shakuni cheating the Pandavas at a game of dice. And so the Pandavas have finished their exile, and the time is now right for them to receive their capital, Indraprastha, back from the evil Duryodhana who had seized it. And Krishna decides to go to the court of Hastinapur as the Pandavas' representative to try and avert to try and prevent the war, because if Indraprastha was not returned to the Pandavas, then everyone knew, then there's going to be a war. So Krishna went as the messenger of peace, and as soon as he arrived in the palace, of course, Duryodhana and Dushasana, they're trying to flatter him and win him over to their side, which didn't work. And Duryodhana wanted Krishna to have his lunch in his palace, but Krishna flatly refused, saying, "No, I will not. I will not eat in a place where I don't, that is not a friend's house." And then he announced, "Well, I'm going to go and eat at Vidura's house because Vidura is my friend." And this, of course, infuriated Duryodhana. So anyway, So Krishna went to Vidura's house, and Vidura's wife Vidurani, right? She had prepared a very simple meal that it didn't have the opulence that of the food in that the loveless food in Duryodhana's palace would have had, right? It was a simple meal prepared with love. And it is said that Krishna absolutely relished this because they were his devotees, Vidura and Vidurani, they were his devotees. And this particular scene here that you see on the screen, so at one point Vidurani, she went to hand Krishna some bananas to eat, and because she was so absorbed in loving feelings for Krishna, she didn't even notice that she accidentally handed him the banana peels rather than the fruit of the banana. But Krishna could understand that it was because she was just so absorbed in loving feelings for him. So Krishna happily accepted the banana peels and ate them rather than the fruit. So, yeah, this is, like I said, this is a famous pastime. And we also have, there's a really nice quote, just finishing up. There's one very nice quote here. Alright, so this is the last slide here. So, in addition to Vidura always speaking up on behalf of Krishna and the Pandavas, there is another Mahatma, namely Bhishma Dev, who was also on the lookout for these evil plots against the Pandavas during the time of the Mahabharata. And Bhishma Dev, so he was the grandsire of the Kaurava clan, right? And Lord Yamaraj, Bhishma Dev is one of our 12 Mahajans. And he is also described as a pure devotee of Krishna. Now, in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada says that when Krishna was personally here 5,000 years ago, there were just a few people who actually knew who he was, who could actually see him for who he was. One of those is Bhishma Dev, listed by Srila Prabhupada. We have Bhishma Dev. Queen Kunti is also listed, the Pandavas, and then Vidura. Vidura also accepted Krishna as his supreme worshipable Lord and friend. And we have this, I've actually got the quote up there. Yeah, so this quote up here, which you can all read, so this, it just tells us, that different devotees of Krishna, different pure devotees of Krishna, they all have their own individual relationship with Krishna, and they have different services to offer Krishna that are very unique to them. And we can actually study the personal characteristics, the personalities of these pure devotees. We can study them and get some insight into how Krishna interacts with these very special individuals, and what their characteristics are, what works in a very close relationship with Krishna. We can learn all of this from studying these very special souls within the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so this is all I had prepared for today, and I was wondering if anyone has a question or a comment that they would like to make. Yes, Ambrish.
When you eat something like a banana, you notice the taste. I don't know, Krishna.
Yes.
How would Krishna not notice the taste of the banana?
Just say your question into the microphone, please. Yeah.
When Krishna ate the banana peel, like normally when you put something in your mouth, you notice the taste of what it is.
Yeah.
So how did, because a banana peel tastes it doesn't taste sweet, it tastes bitter.
Yeah.
So how does Krishna?
Well, it wasn't.
Didn't notice the taste, and he ate the banana peel.
No, it wasn't that Krishna didn't notice. Krishna was well aware that he had been handed banana peels, but he could see in Vidurani that she was totally absorbed in loving feelings for him. So it was Vidurani who did not notice that she accidentally handed Krishna banana peels. But Krishna was well aware. But actually, on the topic of banana peels, because I've chewed on a couple of banana peels, and they actually taste very similar to the banana fruit itself. We know the cows will be just as happy to have a banana fruit as the banana peel. So. And they're perfectly digestible, I think, also. There we go. Banana peels are a very good soaked in water for plants. Yeah. Yeah, I've actually heard it said banana peels have all of the vitamins and minerals in them, whereas other fruits just have certain vitamins and minerals, but bananas have all the vitamins.
Even
okay.
in the peel.
I don't know about the peel. Okay, any more comment? Yes.
I'm very new here. I just came yesterday, so
pardon welcome.
My ignorance in this question. What is the value of...
Hold the microphone a little bit closer, yeah.
What is the value of learning the historical accuracy of these stories versus like when you were saying those like sayings like purity of heart or steadiness? That I understand,
right.
And that's valuable, but what is the other?
Right, okay, so if I understand your question, you're asking what is the value of studying the history, say, of the Mahabharata, right? So one of the teachings that we learn throughout our Shastra, throughout our scriptures, is that Krishna's pastimes, his Leela, is non-different from him. Right? So Krishna's pastimes are transcendental. And simply by hearing about Krishna's pastimes, we become purified. Right? So Krishna is said to be non-different from his name, his form, his pastimes, etc. So I don't know how much you know about this philosophy, but the scriptures teach us that everyone who is materially embodied, here in this material world, unfortunately we are afflicted with being contaminated by the material energy, right? Especially in this cosmological era, which is known as Kali Yuga. Yeah. So in Kali Yuga, we are bombarded by materialism, and it affects our consciousness. It pollutes our consciousness, and it pollutes our hearts. And this makes it very difficult for us to make spiritual progress. So the best way, there are a few core processes by which we can reverse that process. In other words, detox, how we can get rid of all the material influences. And the best way really is hearing and chanting Krishna's names, because Krishna's name is non-different. So Krishna and his name and his pastimes, they're all identical, which means that they are suffused with spiritual potency. So when we are hearing Krishna's name and hearing about his pastimes, it's very purifying for our hearts and our consciousness. And also through hearing and studying Krishna's pastimes throughout the ages, we develop an attraction for Krishna. Right? And this is actually the goal of spiritual life. Yeah. There's a lot more I could say, but we're going to run into breakfast time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah. Does anyone like to add anything or subtract? Rupa Raghunath Prabhu.
Is there any
Yeah, it's on. I think it's on.
Is there any other stories of Vidura incarnating at other times from Yamaraj coming? As any other?
Any other times when Yamaraj has incarnated?
Yeah.
Well, no, but we do know that Yudhisthira, was born by the grace of Lord Yamaraj. So he is his Divya, his divine father, even though his seminal father is... Oh, no, that's right. Yeah, sorry, getting my generations mixed up. Yeah, so... Yudhisthira is actually the son of Lord Yamaraj, and quite often Yudhisthira, that connection between Yudhisthira and Lord Yamaraj is mentioned in the Mahabharata, how Yudhisthira, was a true representative of Lord Yamaraj, but not the same person, don't know about any, exact incarnations in that sense. Do you happen to know of any yourself? Yeah. Ramprasad Prabhu, have you heard of any others? Yeah.
I guess I was wondering if there's any mention that he appeared in Chaitanya Leela. I haven't heard anything.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm ignorant of that. Be a very interesting one to follow up. Krishna Rupa, have you heard of that? Oh, you remember? right. Yeah.
I was actually trying to find that because I was thinking, who was Yamaraj in Chaitanya Leela? But I couldn't find it on my phone.
Okay, well,
But there's, I forget the exact name of that book, Guru Ganesha Difficult, that was, has a list of everyone.
Wow.
And you know, of spiritual importance and who they were in Chaitanya Leela, but I couldn't get that far. But I'll look it up later.
That would be very interesting to find out. Yeah. Thank you everyone for coming and listening, and thank you for your questions and comments. Jai. Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
And thank you, Padma, for your travelling up here and giving us a very interesting and informative class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna Rupa. Thank you very much.